The door to my bedroom creaked open at exactly midnight, casting a long shadow across the floor where I sat frozen on the edge of my bed. That conversation with Oliver, my stepfather, would change our relationship forever in ways I could never have imagined, pulling us into a whirlwind of emotions that tested every boundary of family, desire, and self-acceptance. I had been staring at my phone, heart pounding after a whispered call with a guy from the app who made me feel seen for the first time in years. The screen had gone dark minutes ago, but the guilt still burned in my chest like a live wire. Mom was away at a medical conference in Portland, my little sister Emma was asleep down the hall, and the house in our quiet Seattle suburb felt too big, too silent. Then Oliver was there, tall frame filling the doorway, wearing the same gray t-shirt he'd had on at dinner, his salt and pepper hair slightly tousled as if he hadn't been able to sleep either. "Bennett, we need to talk," he said, voice low but steady, the way he always sounded when something serious was coming. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot in my head. I wanted to shrink into the mattress, to disappear the way I had been trying to disappear from myself for the last 2 years since college graduation. At 24, I was supposed to have it all figured out, a decent entry-level marketing job downtown, maybe a girlfriend to bring home for holidays. Instead, I was hiding in my childhood bedroom, swiping on apps I deleted every morning and lying to the only father figure I had known since I was 14. He sat on the desk chair across from me, elbows on his knees, eyes searching my face under the dim glow of my bedside lamp. "I heard you on the phone earlier. Not trying to spy, just the walls are thin when the house is this quiet." My stomach dropped. I waited for the lecture, the disappointment, the careful words about how Mom would react or how the neighbors might talk. Instead, Oliver exhaled slowly and said, "You don't have to hide it from me, son. Not anymore." The word son hit differently tonight, softer, heavier. I looked up and saw something in his eyes I had never noticed before, a flicker of recognition, maybe even understanding. That was the moment the dam broke. I told him everything, the words tumbling out in a rush I couldn't stop. How I had dated girls in high school because it was easier, how the emptiness grew until I couldn't breathe, how the guy on the phone tonight made me laugh in a way no one else ever had. Oliver listened without interrupting, nodding at the right places, his hands clasped so tightly the knuckles whitened. When I finally ran out of air, he reached over and squeezed my shoulder, the touch warm and grounding. "I get it, Bennett. More than you know." Then he told me his own story, the one he had buried for 20 years. In college, he had fallen hard for a man named Alex, late-night study sessions that turned into something deeper, something real. But his own father had found out, threatened to cut him off, and Oliver chose the safe path, met my mom, built this life. "I never stopped wondering what if," he admitted, voice cracking just once. "But I chose you and Emma and your mother. And I don't regret that. I don't want you to carry the same weight I did." We talked until the sky outside turned the soft gray of pre-dawn. He didn't judge, didn't preach. He just sat there, letting me cry when the relief hit too hard, handing me tissues from the box on my nightstand like it was the most natural thing in the world. When he finally stood to leave, he paused at the door. "This doesn't change how I see you. If anything, it makes me prouder." The door clicked shut again, but the room felt different, lighter, charged with a new kind of electricity I couldn't name yet. I lay back on the pillows, heart racing for an entirely new reason. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone in my own skin, and that terrified me more than anything. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Oliver humming in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Mom was still gone, Emma was at school, and the house felt strangely intimate. I shuffled downstairs in sweatpants, hair a mess, and found him flipping pancakes at the stove. "Morning," he said without turning around, but his shoulders relaxed when I slid onto the stool at the island. We ate in comfortable silence at first. Then he asked about my job search, about the guy from the app, about how I was really feeling. No pressure, just genuine curiosity. I answered honestly for once, and the conversation flowed easy, the way it used to when I was a kid, and he helped me with math homework. Only now there was an undercurrent, a shared secret that made every glance feel weighted. By afternoon, we were in the backyard tossing a football like old times, laughing when I fumbled the catch. His laugh was deep and warm, the kind that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. I caught myself staring a second too long, the way the sunlight caught the silver in his hair, the way his t-shirt stretched across his shoulders. I looked away fast, heat rising in my face. This was Oliver, my stepdad, the man who had taught me to drive and cheered at every soccer game. The man who had just told me he understood my heart better than anyone. I couldn't let my brain twist that into something else. Or could I? That night, after Emma went to bed, we sat on the back porch with beers, talking about everything and nothing. He told me stories from his college days I had never heard, the fear he carried, the relief when he finally let it go. I told him about the dates that felt wrong, the nights I lay awake wondering if I was broken. The air between us hummed with honesty, and when our eyes met over the bottle rims, something shifted, subtle but undeniable. I went to bed with my mind spinning, replaying every word, every look. The conversation had cracked open a door I didn't know existed, and now I wasn't sure I wanted to close it. The days after that midnight, talk blurred into a new rhythm I hadn't expected. Oliver started coming home earlier from his architecture firm downtown, claiming he wanted to help me polish my resume. We spent hours at the dining table, laptops open, his reading glasses perched on his nose while he suggested better ways to phrase my marketing internship experience. Mom called every evening from the conference, cheerful and oblivious, asking if we were surviving without her. "Your stepdad's taking good care of you, right?" she'd say, and I'd glance across the table at Oliver, who would wink like we shared the best inside joke in the world. The secret felt electric, binding us tighter than blood ever could. One afternoon, he surprised me with tickets to a Mariners game, just the two of us. The stadium roared around us, but the real conversation happened in the quiet moments between innings. "You know," he said during the seventh inning stretch, voice low under the organ music, "when I was your age, I would have given anything for someone to tell me it was okay to feel what I felt." His knee brushed mine in the narrow seats, and neither of us pulled away. The crowd cheered a home run, but all I could focus on was the warmth of that brief contact, the way it sent a spark straight through me. I laughed it off, blamed the beer, but inside my chest something was rearranging itself, rearranging around him. Back home that night, Emma grilled us about the game over leftover pizza. She was 18, sharp-eyed, and nosy in the way only little sisters can be. "You two are getting along better than usual," she teased, scrolling through her phone. Oliver ruffled her hair and changed the subject to her college applications, but I caught the quick look he gave me, half warning, half something softer. Later, when the house was quiet again, he knocked on my door with 2 glasses of whiskey. "Thought you might want to talk more," he said. We ended up on the floor leaning against my bed, trading stories until the bottle was empty. He told me about Alex again, how the breakup had gutted him, how he had thrown himself into work and then into our family to forget. I told him about the guy from the app, how the spark had faded the second we met in person. "Maybe I'm just scared," I admitted. Oliver's hand rested on my knee for a moment, steadying. "Fear's normal, Bennett. What matters is what you do with it." The next week brought the first real test. My old college friend Ryan stopped by unannounced, the straight guy who had always ribbed me about my mysterious single status. We shot hoops in the driveway, while Oliver worked in his home office upstairs. Ryan kept glancing at the house. "Your stepdad's still the cool one, huh? Saw you two at the game on Instagram. Looked pretty cozy." The word landed like a stone in still water. I brushed it off, but later when Ryan left, Oliver came down, jaw tight. "He say something?" I shook my head, but the worry was there now, a crack in the safe little world we had built in Mom's absence. That evening we drove to the lake just to get out, windows down, radio low. Oliver parked, and we sat on the hood watching the sun sink over the water. "I don't want to make your life harder," he said quietly. "If this closeness is too much," I cut him off before he could finish. "It's not. It's the first time anything's felt right in years." The admission hung between us, heavier than the humid air. He didn't answer, just reached over and squeezed my hand once, brief but deliberate, before starting the car again. Back home, the tension followed us inside. I lay in bed replaying that hand squeeze, the way his fingers had lingered a second longer than necessary. My mind raced through every shared laugh, every late-night talk, every time his eyes had softened when they landed on me. This wasn't just gratitude. This was something deeper, something that scared me, because it involved the one person who was never supposed to be an option. I heard his footsteps in the hall, pausing outside my door for a long moment before continuing to his own room. Neither of us slept much that night. The following morning, Mom texted she was extending her trip by 3 days. Oliver read the message over my shoulder in the kitchen, and our eyes met. 3 more days of just us. The air felt charged, possibilities stretching out like the long summer ahead. I told myself it was nothing, just 2 men who finally understood each other. But when he smiled at me across the counter, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and crinkled the skin at the corners, I knew I was lying to myself again. And for the first time, I didn't want to stop. The extra days with Mom away stretched into a kind of private universe where the rules felt suspended. Oliver and I fell into a routine that felt dangerously domestic. Morning runs along the waterfront trail, coffee on the porch while we read the news aloud, evenings cooking dinner together with music playing low. Emma noticed the change during her brief visits home from her part-time job at the mall. "You guys are like best friends now," she said one night, stealing fries off my plate. I shrugged it off, but Oliver's foot nudged mine under the table in silent acknowledgement. The secret was becoming a language only we spoke. One rainy afternoon, we ended up in the attic digging through old boxes for photos Mom wanted scanned. Dust motes danced in the slanted light from the small window as we uncovered a shoebox of Oliver's college things. He hesitated before opening it, then pulled out a faded snapshot of 2 young men laughing on a campus lawn. Alex. The resemblance to me was subtle, but there, same dark hair, same easy smile. Oliver's voice was quiet. He looked at me the way you do sometimes, like I was worth seeing. The words landed soft but seismic. I didn't know what to say, so I just reached over and rested my hand on his shoulder. He covered it with his own, and for a long moment neither of us moved. The rain tapped steadily on the roof like a heartbeat. That night, the power flickered during a thunderstorm. We lit candles and played cards at the kitchen table, laughing when the wind rattled the windows. Between hands, Oliver grew serious. "Bennett, I need to tell you something. These past weeks, I've been remembering feelings I thought were gone for good. Feelings that scare me because they involve you." My card slipped from my fingers. The candlelight caught the honesty in his eyes, and I couldn't look away. "I'm not asking for anything," he continued quickly. I can't keep pretending this is only father-son anymore." The admission hung in the charged air between us. My heart hammered so loud I was sure he could hear it. I wanted to tell him I felt it too, the pull, the warmth that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with the man sitting across from me. Instead, I whispered, "I feel it too, Oliver, and it terrifies me. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to." The truth itself was enough to shift the ground beneath us. The storm passed, power returned, but the new reality stayed. The next morning, I woke to find him already up, making breakfast with quiet focus. When I entered the kitchen, he turned, and the smile he gave me was different, careful but warm. "We don't have to figure it all out today," he said. I nodded, relief and longing tangled together in my chest. Work brought the first real outside pressure. Oliver had a big presentation at the firm, and I tagged along to the city to network for my own job hunt. In the elevator up to his office, our shoulders brushed, and he didn't step away. Later, during a coffee break in the lobby, a colleague of his, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla, raised an eyebrow at how easily we finished each other's sentences. "You two are close," she observed. Oliver laughed it off as family bonding, but on the drive home his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "People notice," he said quietly. "We have to be careful." The word we sent a thrill through me I couldn't deny. That evening I met up with an old gym buddy, a guy named Marcus who had come out years ago. We grabbed drinks downtown, and I danced around the truth until he called me on it. "You're glowing, man. Spill." I told him pieces, enough to get advice without naming Oliver. Marcus listened, then leaned in. "Whoever he is, if he makes you feel safe and seen, don't let fear steal that. Life's too short. His words echoed on the ferry ride home across the dark water. Oliver was waiting up when I got back, 2 mugs of tea on the counter. We talked until the candles burned low again, mapping out the minefield ahead. Mom's return, Emma's intuition, the world outside our quiet house. When I finally headed upstairs, he caught my wrist gently. "Whatever happens, I've got your back." The touch lingered, and for the first time, I let myself imagine what more might feel like. The following week, Mom's flight landed. She walked through the door exhausted, but smiling, pulling us both into a group hug. "My boys," she said, and the guilt hit me like a wave. Oliver met my eyes over her shoulder, steady, reassuring. The secret now had 3 people in the house instead of 2, and the balancing act began. Dinners were normal on the surface, but every shared glance between Oliver and me carried weight. I started applying for jobs farther away, telling myself it was practical, but really I was testing how far I could run from feelings that refused to stay buried. Oliver noticed. One night, after Mom and Emma were asleep, he slipped into my room, the same way he had that first midnight. "Don't run, Bennett. Not from this. Not from us." His voice was barely above a whisper, but it anchored me in place. I nodded, and when he left, I lay awake, wondering how long we could keep pretending the line between family and something more hadn't already been crossed. Mom's return brought normalcy that felt like a thin coat of paint over everything. She chattered about the conference, the new medical protocols, while Oliver and I exchanged careful smiles across the dinner table. Emma watched us all with narrowed eyes, but said nothing yet. The tension simmered beneath polite conversation, every pass the salt, carrying subtext only Oliver and I understood. I threw myself into job interviews, landing a second-round callback at a downtown agency. Oliver helped me rehearse answers late one night after everyone else was in bed, his voice patient, his presence steady. When I nailed a practice question, he grinned and ruffled my hair the way he used to when I was 16. The touch lingered, and we both froze, the air suddenly thick with everything unsaid. The weekend brought Oliver's brother Derek for a visit, the one person who had never quite warmed to our blended family. Derek arrived in his pickup truck, loud and opinionated, full of stories from his construction business in Spokane. At dinner, he launched into his usual rants about the way things used to be, throwing in casual comments about those people that made my stomach twist. Oliver's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. Later, when Derek cornered me in the garage asking why I was still single at 24, I felt Oliver appear in the doorway like a shield. "Bennett's figuring things out," he said calmly. "No rush." Derek snorted but dropped it. That night, Oliver found me on the back porch, staring at the stars. "He doesn't get to define you," he murmured. I turned to him, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Neither does fear. I don't want to hide anymore, Oliver. Not from you." His hand found mine in the dark, fingers intertwining, and for a long minute we just stood there breathing the same air. The next morning, Derek announced he was taking Oliver golfing. I stayed home with Mom and Emma, helping with laundry while my mind replayed the porch moment. When they returned, Oliver looked drained. Derek had spent 9 holes preaching about traditional values and how kids these days were confused. Oliver had said nothing, protecting our secret at the cost of his own silence. I saw the toll in the lines around his eyes. That evening, I made his favorite pasta, and we ate on the patio after Mom and Emma went inside. "You sacrificed today," I said softly. He shrugged, but his smile was tired. "Worth it if it keeps you safe." The protectiveness in his voice cracked something open in me. I reached across the table and traced the back of his hand with my thumb. He didn't pull away. The misunderstanding came 2 days later. Mom walked into the living room while Oliver and I were reviewing my interview outfit, standing close as he adjusted my tie. She paused, head tilted. "You two are thick as thieves lately." Her tone was light, but her eyes lingered. Oliver laughed it off, claiming he was just playing proud dad. I forced a smile, but the moment stretched. Later, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Everything okay with you and Oliver? You seem different." I assured her we were fine, closer than ever actually. She hugged me, but the seed of doubt was planted. That night, Oliver slipped into my room again, closing the door with extra care. "We almost slipped," he whispered. Maybe we need space. The suggestion hurt more than I expected. Is that what you want? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. No, but I don't want to hurt your mother either. We sat on the edge of my bed, shoulders touching, talking through the impossible geometry of our feelings until the clock showed 3 a.m. When he stood to leave, I caught his wrist. Stay, just for a minute. He did, and we leaned into each other, foreheads touching, breathing the same quiet rhythm. No more than that. It was enough and not enough all at once. The job callback came through the next morning. The agency wanted me in for a final interview in 2 days. Oliver drove me downtown, both of us silent most of the way. In the parking garage before I went up, he turned to me. Whatever happens with the job, whatever happens with us, I'm proud of you, Bennett. For being honest. For being you. The sincerity in his voice steadied me through the interview. I nailed it. On the drive home, we celebrated with milkshakes from the old drive-in we used to visit when I was a kid. Laughter came easy again, but underneath it the question loomed larger than ever. How long could we keep dancing on the edge of something beautiful and dangerous? Emma finally asked the question we'd been dreading during a family movie night. Are you two hiding something? The room went still. Mom laughed nervously. Oliver changed the channel, and I mumbled something about work stress. But Emma's eyes met mine, and I knew she wasn't convinced. The walls were closing in, yet every time I looked at Oliver, the pull only grew stronger. That night, after everyone slept, I found him in the kitchen, nursing a glass of water. We can't keep doing this halfway, I said. He set the glass down and pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. I know, he whispered into my hair. I know. The final interview went well enough that the agency offered me the job on the spot, a solid marketing coordinator position with benefits and a downtown office. I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I drove home in a daze, the offer letter burning a hole in my pocket. Oliver was waiting on the porch when I pulled up, reading glasses on, pretending to check emails. One look at my face, and he knew. We walked to the backyard together, out of earshot. Congratulations, he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. This is good for you, Bennett. New start. The words felt like goodbye. I told him I hadn't accepted yet, that the thought of leaving this house, leaving him, made the victory taste like ash. He was quiet for a long time, then said, I won't be the reason you stay stuck. The sacrifice in his voice broke something in me. That evening, Mom made my favorite lasagna to celebrate the offer. The table was full of forced cheer, Emma teasing me about finally moving out, Mom already planning a housewarming. Oliver stayed mostly silent, pushing food around his plate. Later, when the dishes were done, he found me in the garage pretending to organize tools. Take the job, he said quietly. Build your life. I'll still be here. I turned to him, frustration and longing colliding. What if I don't want a life that doesn't include you like this? The question hung between us until he stepped closer, cupped my face with both hands, and pressed his forehead to mine. Then we figure out together, but not at the cost of your future. The touch was tender, almost reverent, and for the first time, I let myself imagine a future where the labels didn't matter. The betrayal came without warning. Ryan, my old college friend, posted an old photo of us on social media with a caption about finally figuring things out after I had confided in him during our drinks weeks earlier. The post was vague, but the comments weren't. Someone tagged Mom. By morning, the family group chat was blowing up with concerned relatives. Mom confronted me in the kitchen, voice shaking. Is there something you need to tell me, Bennett? Oliver stood in the doorway, face pale. I looked at him, then at her, and the words finally came. I'm gay, Mom. I've been trying to tell you for years. The silence that followed was deafening. She sat down hard at the table, tears welling. Oliver moved beside her, hand on her shoulder, steady as always. He's still your son, he said softly. Still ours. The next 48 hours were a blur of tears, long talks, and painful honesty. Mom struggled, not with my sexuality, but with the suddenness, the years of secrets. Emma surprised us all by hugging me tight and saying, "Took you long enough." Oliver stayed in the background, supportive, but careful, never overstepping. Late one night, after Mom had cried herself to sleep, he slipped into my room again. "You were brave today," he whispered. I pulled him down beside me on the bed, and we lay there fully clothed, his arm around my shoulders, talking through the fallout until the sky lightened. "I love you," I said suddenly, the words slipping out raw and true. He went still, then turned to face me. "I love you too, Bennett. God help us both." The admission settled over us like a blanket, warm and terrifying. We decided to take a weekend away, just the two of us, under the guise of father-son fishing trip to a cabin Oliver owned on the Olympic Peninsula. The drive was quiet first, then the miles loosened our tongues. We talked about everything: the guilt, the joy, the fear of hurting Mom. At the cabin, we built a fire and sat on the dock watching the stars. Oliver reached for my hand without hesitation. "Whatever we decide, I want you to know this isn't just a phase for me. You woke something in me I thought was dead." I kissed his knuckles, the only line we had crossed so far, and felt the future open up in front of us, uncertain but possible. Back home, Mom was waiting. She had spent the weekend thinking, she said. "I love you both," she told us in the living room, voice steady. "And I want you to be happy. Just give me time." The grace in her words was more than we deserved. Emma high-fived me later, whispering, "You two are gross but cute." The relief was enormous, yet the path ahead was still littered with obstacles. Coworkers, neighbors, the world outside our front door. Oliver and I agreed to move slowly, to keep things private until we were ready. But every night when the house grew quiet, he would find his way to my door, and I would let him in. The love that had sparked at midnight was growing roots, strong enough to weather whatever came next. The months that followed felt like learning to walk on new legs. I accepted the marketing job and moved into a small apartment downtown, close enough for Sunday dinners, but far enough to give everyone breathing room. Oliver helped me paint the walls, our shoulders brushing in the cramped space, laughter echoing off bare floors. Mom came by with housewarming gifts and careful questions, her acceptance growing a little stronger each visit. Emma texted me memes about stepdad-stepson bonding that made us both cringe and smile. The secret was no longer a burden, but a shared strength. At work, I thrived, channeling the emotional roller coaster into creative campaigns that earned me early praise. Oliver's firm landed a major waterfront project, and he poured his energy into blueprints and late nights, texting me photos of coffee-stained sketches with captions that made me grin at my desk. We stole weekends when we could, drives to the coast, or quiet evenings in my apartment where we cooked and talked, and sometimes just sat on the couch with his arm around me, the TV murmuring forgotten. The physical side remained gentle, respectful, two men learning each other's hearts before anything else. Every touch carried the weight of choice, of courage. The real test came when Derek showed up unannounced again, this time with rumors he had heard through the family grapevine. He cornered Oliver in the driveway while I watched from the window, voice rising. "People are talking, man. You and the kid? That's sick." Oliver stood tall, voice calm but steel-edged. "Bennett is a grown man. What we feel is real and none of your business." The confrontation ended with Derek storming off, tires screeching. Oliver came inside looking drained but resolute. "I chose you," he said simply. "I'll keep choosing you." That night we sat on my tiny balcony overlooking the city lights and made a promise. No more hiding from the people who mattered, but no rushing the world either. We would live our truth at our own pace. Spring brought new beginnings. I introduced Oliver to my work friends at a casual happy hour, framing him as the best stepdad a guy could ask for. They bought it, or at least pretended to. Oliver's colleagues noticed his lighter mood and credited the family time. Slowly the pieces fit. Mom started dating a doctor from a hospital, her own fresh start. Emma got into her dream college and celebrated with all of us around the same dining table where the midnight talk had begun. Life moved forward, richer for the cracks we had walked through together. One warm evening on the same back porch where everything had shifted, Oliver turned to me with a small box in his hand. Not a ring, not yet, but a simple key to his cabin, engraved with our initials. "Whenever you need to remember where home is," he said. I took it, then pulled him into a hug that turned into quiet laughter and whispered plans for the future. The journey had been messy, painful, beautiful. We had faced misunderstanding, betrayal, sacrifice, and come out stronger, more ourselves than ever. Looking back at the boy who sat terrified on his bed that midnight, I barely recognized him. The man I had become, the man I was becoming with Oliver beside me, understood that love wasn't about easy labels or perfect timing. It was about the courage to walk into the unknown together. True or false? Love between two men who found each other in the most unexpected place can truly heal old wounds and build a future worth fighting for, no matter the cost.